What makes a show good to you? Is it hyper-realism? A deep repository of lore to parse through? Complex interweaving plots and subplots that craft a detail-rich, long-running narrative? Or is there perhaps more to it than just the standard conventions that are so popular in Hollywood films? I think the beauty of anime is that for a Western audience, it allows for an experience that is wholly disconnected from the established rules of the Western industry. Of course, there are universal rules that apply to all works of art in order to help them succeed, but for new viewers of anime, they get to experience a whole different set of influences and cultural ties. I think for that reason, anime is becoming more and more popular with regular everyday people in the West, as people begin to lose interest in the Hollywood blockbusters. One complaint I see often is that many films and TV shows are leaning too hard into one category, either A, not being relatable to the targeted viewer, or B, being so hyper-focused on relatability that they appeal to a far too broad audience. Both of these issues doom a show to have that plastic sort of overproduced Hollywood feel to them that prevents them from making any real connections with the viewers. Average consumers may enjoy these shows, but it is unlikely that they'll strike a deep connection with the director or artist behind the work. Examples of such shows include things you've probably heard of, like Game of Thrones. While a show like Game of Thrones can be good, for some who want more connection in their media, it fails to hit the mark. Now, don't get me wrong, all of that isn't just to shit on Game of Thrones. If you love it, that's absolutely great, and I hope that you continue to do so. But the point in me saying that is meant to articulate that shows must reach a balance between exclusivity and inclusivity within their target audience to really nail a connection between the artist and the patron. Now, of course, it goes without saying that casting the widest net possible will land you viewers, but when is the last time that you walked out of a Marvel movie feeling like you just made a genuine connection between yourself and the director? This balance is damn near impossible to achieve, but I think that there is one show that puts it on display incredibly well. Lucky Star is a show that is intended solely for those who consume anime. More specifically, those who were already consuming anime during the 2000s to 2010s. If you're late to the party and you haven't experienced what it was like to be an anime fan in the 2000s, then this show may be rather perplexing to you. But for the audience that was around for it, this show now feels like a comforting slice of nostalgia that brings back memories of simpler times. Lucky Star succeeds at catering to an audience that isn't the biggest, even within the anime community, but that niche is exactly why it is still remembered and discussed by those who have connected with it. Lucky Star's target audience is people who fall into three categories. 1, they must enjoy slice of life. If you can't stand slice of life because it's too slow or doesn't have enough elements to hold your interest, then it's likely that Lucky Star won't connect with you. 2, it's necessary that you understand the conventions and influences behind most popular anime. This sounds fancier than it actually is, so if you're unsure of whether or not this applies to you, I find a good way to measure this is if you are past the point where most things in anime seem weird. To the avid consumer who understands the influences behind anime, things tend to become normalized. For example, someone who just finished Sword Art Online for their first time watching an anime is likely to see Kill la Kill as rather strange and off-putting because of the fan service, whereas a veteran in the anime scene sees it as just another show. A very, very good show, just to be clear. 3, lastly, the show hits best if you were around to experience anime culture of the 2000s to 2010s. This third element can be supplemented and made up for if you consume lots of anime from that time period, but I feel that it hits the best if you have a natural understanding of it. While these 3 factors may seem like heavy prerequisites, I think for many anime fans, they already apply. However, the third one is the only time-gated one, and that means that it will be less and less applicable to consumers as time marches ever forward. But, like I mentioned previously, going through a backlog of shows from that time will develop your understanding of the culture surrounding anime during that time period. While writing this video, I asked around to those who had a shared interest in Lucky Star to find out what exactly it was about the show that really made it click for them. The general sentiment that I got was that the low-stakes, easygoing nature of the show made for a very comfortable and enjoyable experience. Another feeling brought up that I myself certainly can attest to was a deep sense of nostalgia. This show focuses entirely on the normal lives of high schoolers in the mid-2000s. This time period was and is incredibly important to many anime fans today, myself included. So going back and reliving it through this pastel-colored lens of a comfy slice-of-life anime is an absolute joy to the senses. This feeling of nostalgia would be less effective if the show's characters were not relatable to its audience. Now, this is an obvious conclusion that many slice-of-life shows seem to mess up. If you want to make a piece of art that evokes feelings of nostalgia and comfort, you must first make a deeply relatable cast that your target audience can see themselves in. A character like Konata is an excellent choice for the main girl because she is most likely to be relatable to the target audience. An anime fan to the very core who scrapes by in school doing the minimum required amount so that she can spend more of her time on her hobbies, which of course consist of anime, games, and manga. Now obviously a show cannot succeed from one character though, so it's important to nail the side characters as well, so that even those who fall just outside of your target can find relatable elements to latch onto. Take for example the character of Kagami. Now Kagami is a perfect example of this, because while she is more serious and dedicated to her studies than Konata, she's also shown to be a fan of games and anime, which once again feeds back into the aspect of relatability. While these characters are far from homogenous, they're certainly not the most diverse set of protagonists anime has ever seen. Instead of highlighting diverse personalities in order to have something for everyone, the show deliberately chooses to hyper-focus on one set of people who are likely to relate heavily to each of the characters in one aspect or another. This cast of relatable characters makes for an endearing show that can capitalize on its nostalgia factor by playing to the emotions of its audience. And playing on emotion is the fastest way for a show to work its way into the collective conscious of many anime fans. A show can be nice looking, well written, and technically very good, but if it fails to connect on an emotional level with its audience, then it's essentially dead on arrival. This issue of emotional relatability isn't just relegated to anime, by the way. Another prominent example of this is with characters in fighting games. While the developers of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite may insist that characters are just vessels for movesets, anyone who has ever played a fighting game knows that there's much more to character selection than just what moves they have. And the same goes for anime, as there's much more to a show than just production value. A connection between an artist and an audience, by its very nature, must be established through emotional attachment, for that is the mechanism by which viewers decide whether a show will become one of their favorites. Lucky Star exemplifies this emotional connection by creating a world where all problems seem small and far away. The setting of the mid-2000s makes all the daily life elements feel nostalgic and comforting, while the problems feel distant and resolved because the show's time period has long since come and gone. In such a tumultuous year as 2020, I think that everyone can use a little comfort every now and again. So if it sounds like it would catch your interest, then I highly recommend Lucky Star. It's a slice-of-life classic that defined the tropes of the genre, and it's perfectly tailored to fans that grew up with anime in their lives. And if you liked the video, let me know by hitting the like button below. If you're new, please feel free to subscribe so you don't miss another video. And if you already are subscribed, consider following me on Twitter. If you want to hit me up for any reason with ideas, feedback, or anything else, Twitter's the best place to do that. All of that YouTube stuff aside, I just want to say thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.